While the NFL offseason is far from over, a lot of the big moves that will set the tone for the 2022 regular season have been made, like Russell Wilson becoming a Bronco and Deshaun Watson becoming a Cleveland Brown, and several other moves in between. And in today's video, we are going to be discussing some of the biggest winners and losers of the 2022 NFL offseason, both from a personal standpoint and from a team standpoint, and there are plenty of each to dive into, so without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video with the Los Angeles Chargers as one of the biggest winners because of the moves they made to get better on the defensive side of the football. It was very evident how much they struggled on defense in 2021 as they gave up the third most rushing yards in the NFL and finished third to last in the entire NFL in terms of points given up, ahead of only the Jets and Lions, who have a combined 3 playoff appearances in the past 10 years, and tied with the Atlanta Falcons, who can be described as one big question mark at this point in time. They, like everyone over the past couple of years, have seen the Kansas City Chiefs dominate, and for that matter the Buffalo Bills over the past 2 years as well, and essentially said, well, if what they do works, let's try our best to emulate that success model, and they have done exactly that. Fortunately for them, they have a very good quarterback to be able to do this with in Justin Herbert, as other teams, I'm not going to mention any, you can figure out who, but we'll just say other teams that have drafted a quarterback in the first round over the past 4 or 5 years have not drafted a Mahomes, Allen, or Herbert, and cannot do this, period. And LA recognizes that Herbert by the mid-2020s will be getting compensated well north of $40 million per year, and it could honestly be even more than that, as 4 years ago right now, Kirk Cousins' $28 million per year was groundbreaking, and now if you had a quarterback at $28 million, it would be a steal. So truly, who knows what Herbert will be getting paid by then. But when you go out and get a number 1 corner in J.C. Jackson and trade what would equate to a measly second-round pick for an immediate impact player in Khalil Mack, while already having pieces to complement those players on the defense in Joey Bosa for Khalil Mack and Derwin James for J.C. Jackson, these are enormous moves and will only help the Chargers compete and grow in the wild, wild west that is the AFC. They could still get better by drafting a defensive tackle in Jordan Davis, who is a mountain of a man from Georgia, and have themselves a grand slam of an offseason. I love what the Chargers are doing, and while I'm not getting into the debate of who's winning the AFC West next year, I'll say this: I don't blame people for having confidence in placing those future bets on the Los Angeles Chargers. And next we go to Carolina to discuss the Panthers, and if you guys saw the head coach's picture for the upcoming season, Matt Rule in that picture describes how Carolina's future looks at the moment. I'm sure the immediate thought is, if you're including an NFC South team, why not include the Falcons, as they traded away Matt Ryan and their future currently looks pretty dim. And the reason is because they're clearly saying, look, we have the GOAT in our division and we're not going to beat him this year, so we're committing to a full rebuild. Yes, we're going to suck, but we are still committing to that at this point in time. With the Panthers, it's more of a, I don't know what the hell their plans are at this moment in time, and I would imagine it's draft a quarterback at pick 6, but if in the case they do not, then what exactly are we going for here? Mediocrity? I want this to be clear that this to a degree changes if they draft a quarterback, but in the same sense, they're still a bad football team with not a lot of draft capital, as the Sam Darnold trade was a disaster and a failure in a lot of ways. The Jets have their second round pick, which is pick 38 overall, and having that extra top 40 pick for a rebuilding franchise could go a long way versus having it to be in a trade that went to a player who produced in his lone season in Carolina just 9 passing touchdowns to 13 interceptions, and even for Sam, who is widely considered a draft disappointment, his season in Carolina yielded the lowest passer rating of his career, registering at just 71.9. You're left in a state of below mediocrity, yet have some very good football players on the roster in the likes of Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, and Brian Burns, yet aren't anywhere closer to competing. And while a rookie quarterback, whether it's Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis at 6, because for full clarity, I do not think they would take Matt Corral at pick 6, they're not going to put you closer to competing in 2022. This is why I was such an advocate for them to trade for Baker Mayfield, because at his best, he can be a serviceable quarterback, and I do believe he could lead this roster to very close, at least, to the 7th seed in the NFC. And with them having Deshaun Watson now, the Browns have zero leverage at all, and I wouldn't be surprised if Baker Mayfield simply doesn't report to training camp or any of that, and at this point, I believe they'll either release him or trade him for a 7th round pick, because again, they have zero leverage. And if he plays well, which is entirely possible, having Christian McCaffrey behind him and DJ Moore and his former Browns teammate in Hollywood Higgins, I'm not going to sit here and act like they would win the NFC South over the Bucs, but what I will say is that is serviceable. The Panthers, like they have for the past couple of years, remain stagnant and will enter the 2022 NFL Draft with just one pick in the top 100. And back to a big winner this offseason, and it is the Houston Texans for a couple of reasons. Obviously, they parted ways with former quarterback Deshaun Watson, and the reason I consider this a huge win for them is they received a haul for him, and what people don't seem to remember with all of this is the Texans were horrible in 2020 even with Deshaun. And QB wins are a stat in theory, but there's a lot of context around them, as you can't go into a bar and say, yes, Jimmy G is 31-14 as the 49er starter, he's a top 3 quarterback. And my point here is in Deshaun's final season as the starter with the Texans, they went just 4-12 with him as their guy. And they finished 2021 4-13 with Davis Mills and Tyrod Taylor as their quarterbacks for the season. So it's not like this team, even if they have Deshaun, is going to go 8-9 now or whatever record, right? We know they're not a good football team currently, and for a player who had no intentions of playing for this franchise again, they get 3 first-round picks, including 1 guaranteed to be in the top 15 of one draft, which is obviously this year's at pick 13, and with how loaded the AFC is, I mean, there's a chance Cleveland misses the playoffs next year, and another one of those picks become a top 15 or 17 pick. And we've all heard how loaded the 2023 draft class is, and, well, quite honestly, I don't think Cleveland wins the Super Bowl this coming year, so if you're looking for my long-term prediction, that's going to be one of them. Cleveland doesn't win the Super Bowl. So heading into the 2023 draft class with what will more than likely equate to, and this is at worst, probably 2 top 25 picks with one of those because of Houston not being good, being in the top 5 or 10 picks. I realize there may be a question of, well, why is that good when they suck? And it's because even if the Texans have Deshaun this year, and for them to go all in, they wouldn't be competing with the big dogs of the AFC, and even when they made the playoffs a couple of years ago, yes, they were in theory in the playoffs, but no one was saying, yes, the Texans, they're dark horse contenders, and they're going to Arrowhead and win. And when they were up 24 points, they were outscored 51-7 for the remainder of the ballgame. Houston has 6 first-round picks over the next 3 years, and there's a chance all 6 of those picks are within the top 20 to 22 of each draft. Houston gained as much from this trade from a team-building perspective as much as Cleveland gained a franchise quarterback. And the next big loser so far this offseason is the Green Bay Packers, and hear me out on this one. Yes, they received a first and a second round pick for the Davante Adams trade, but they also lost a lot more than just Davante. And even though they gained the said first and second round pick for him, this is a receiver who had nearly a decade of chemistry built up with the current quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, and will be for the next 2 years at minimum, and maybe even longer, more productive than whoever they replace him with. Green Bay also lost Marquez Valdes-Scantling, as he is now a Chief, and their current depth chart at receiver is Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, Amari Rodgers, and Juwan Winfrey, which we certainly expect to change with the NFL Draft looming. But for a team that has failed to get back to the Super Bowl since 2010, despite having one of the best quarterbacks, not even over the past 3 or 4 years, but of this century, how did you get closer to the goal of Aaron bringing a second Lombardi to Green Bay? And to me, you didn't. A lot of players left, and yes, you have more draft picks, but you have an aging quarterback, and yes, Aaron has back-to-back MVP seasons, but just last year, this team put up a paltry 10 points in a home playoff game, and the immediate decisions after were to not get better offensively. On top of it, the Rams are the Rams, the 49ers are the 49ers, and now have a dual-threat quarterback, which is something defenses will have to account for, and oh yeah, the Bucs are back. And one thing that's really not discussed with Aaron Rodgers, and it's due in large part to Tom being as dominant as he is at the age he is, but there's a very good chance that Aaron Rodgers could face the father time issue that defeated Peyton Manning at the end in his 2015 season, and this isn't to say that it will, but it is most certainly a possibility given his age. In a conference where a lot of teams got better, and don't get me wrong, a few got worse, the Packers have done nothing to get better, and they are the defending number 1 seed of the conference. And obviously the Rams are the defending Super Bowl champions, but I don't see any way at this point in time Green Bay can come back and repeat as the number 1 seed. And this team is 0-2 in their last playoff game, so we'd have to focus on winning games in the playoffs before winning Super Bowls. But with a quarterback who's getting up there and who will turn 39 in December this year, you certainly didn't do him any favors. And for that reason, they are one of the biggest losers of the entire 2022 offseason at this point in time. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, now is the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We recently hit 38,000 subs, and I cannot thank you guys enough for the support. And until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.